Hello, welcome. I'm glad to see people joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. Um, I would like to invite you, as you are joining this morning, to say hello. Let us know where you're joining from today, and maybe also include what role you have in fostering language with preschoolers. So, are you an educator, a program administrator, an ed coordinator, a coach, a mentor, a researcher, a professor? You get the idea. And I don't know if there's a way to pin a chat, um, Mary, so that people know as they're joining. Or hopefully, people will see the chat lighting up. Um, it's exciting to see people sharing little bits of information, people coming from Pennsylvania, people, preschool teachers, coaches, New Jersey, an administrator, director, registered apprenticeship coach. So very excited to have you all joining here. We're going to wait a couple of minutes as folks join the webinar. Give people a little bit of time to come in. I know we just opened it up.
Thank you for all for coming. I'm happy to see some of my friends in the chat. I'm glad that we'll be able to have this time to have this conversation together.
Well, as people start to roll in, I know we've got a lot to talk about today, and I'm really excited to get things started. So I think we'll go ahead. I'll take care of a little bit of housekeeping. And again, I've got Mary here helping me with some tech support behind the scenes. And I don't know, again, if there's a way to post that chat or we can just kind of periodically post it. But we're going to be, this is mostly going to be a conversation today, but we are going to ask you to participate a little bit. And we like to keep this a little bit engaging for all of you. So we are going to use the chat a little bit today and the Q&A. So in the bottom of your Zoom, I'm sure many of you are experts by now, but there should be a chat and a Q&A. And we would like you to use the chat throughout the webinar for some participant engagement. And save your questions and put those in the Q&A. You can enter your questions all throughout the webinar, but we will have a special time towards the end of our conversation where we're going to do the Q&A. And if you put any questions in the chat, they may be missed. So make sure to put all your questions in the Q&A. And if you see someone else's question that you're also curious about, go ahead. There's an upvote feature that you can click on and use that, so we just know like lots of people are interested in this question. Because depending on how many questions we get, we'll have time to answer some of them, maybe not all of them. So that's just a way to like help us prioritize which questions we focus on. If we get so many that we can't get to them all. And also, if you stay to the very end, you'll be eligible to win a prize. So you will have to be present to claim that prize. So we encourage you to stay. Yeah. So it looks like people are still filtering in. Again, welcome. Go ahead and put in some information about where you're from, maybe what your role is, and we'll get started. So today, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. I'm thrilled that you could join us today, and I'm really, really excited about the opportunity to sit down and talk about fostering language development in preschoolers with Dr. Curenton. So without further ado, let me introduce my conversation partner to you. Dr. Stephanie Curenton is a professor in the Educational Leadership and Policy Study Department at Boston University Wheelock College of Education and Human Development, and the director of the Center on the Ecology of Early Development. She's also a senior fellow at the Harvard University Center on the Developing Child and is a non-resident fellow at the Urban Institute. She's a developmental and community psychologist who studies the social, cognitive, and language development of racially and linguistically marginalized children within various ecological contexts, such as parent-child interactions, early childhood care and education, professional development interventions for the early childhood workforce, and related state and federal policies designed to promote the positive development and health of young children. Dr. Curenton has received national policy fellowships from several organizations, including the Society for Research on Child Development, American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the National Black Child Development Institute. She's worked as a research policy fellow in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Child Care and has served on the Massachusetts Board of Early Education and Care. She's previously served on the boards of the National Association for Education of Young Children and local Head Start programs. She currently serves on the Leadership Council for the Center on Early Childhood at Stanford University. That's a tremendous amount of things. And so, in her free time, if she has any, she enjoys yoga, reading, spending time with her family, and playing with her new dog. And she also loves to talk. And I'm happy that she does because I'm looking forward to talking with her today. So before we begin our conversation, I'd like to ask all of you a question. Pop your answer in the chat, or I'm sorry, not in the chat. We're going to follow up with a little poll, but I want to know how familiar you are with Conversation Compass. So the poll should be launching. You should see it pop open on your screen and go ahead and submit your answers. We'll give it a minute to let everybody answer. And Mary, I'm assuming that people are starting to answer now, but this time I cannot see how many people have answered. So if you could just kind of decide on when it's time to close that poll, and if you can kind of let us know where the majority of people fall on how familiar they are with Conversation Compass.
Sure, Tara. People are still going ahead and answering the poll question right now, so let's give it another couple seconds.
Sure.
More than half have participated so far, but overwhelmingly so far, it seems like this is the first time people are learning about the Conversation Compass.
Oh, well, that's really exciting. So we're kind of at both ends of the spectrum. Either people are just hearing about it for the first time, or people are pretty familiar with it.
Actually, it's it's the first time they're hearing about it. They've heard about it, but don't know much about it, or they know a little bit about it, are the top three in that.
Oh, great. Well, I'm excited that everybody, or not everybody, that so many people are going to be introduced and learn a little bit more about it today. Thanks, Mary. I'm going to go ahead and move us along. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Curenton wrote a book called Conversation Compass, A Teacher's Guide to High Quality Language Learning in Young Children. Hello, Dr. Curenton. Welcome. It's so nice to be here with you today.
Hi.
I'm curious to know about the story behind Conversation Compass. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to write this book?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to be in this space with you all, and thank you for taking your lunchtime to be here and talk with me and Tara. I would love to tell you the story of how I developed the Conversation Compass book, and it starts with research. So about 10 years ago, I first started working with a colleague named Laura Justice on and some of her other colleagues, Shane Piasta and Sonia Cabell, on a research project that focused on conversation responsivity. And so conversation responsivity is defined as the degree to which a speaker actively listens to and acknowledges and builds upon what someone has just said. And in preschool classrooms, this focus is on teachers' use of strategies to promote children's engagement in conversations and strategies to model children's language learning. Let me just move the thing around here. Sorry about that. And so what we learned from this research is that we did research studies in professional development. And what they learned from this research in professional development about conversation responsivity is that these types of interactions resulted in teachers using more communication engagement strategies, and that children then produced more language. And then in another study, we found that this type of professional development was associated with growth in children's vocabulary and their early print-based literacy skills. So when we use the conversation compass professional development approach to investigate conversation responsivity, in particular, we found that teachers just were using more of these engagement strategies, and that the children's language grew grammatically as well after the training, after the professional development interventions. And so it was really a situation in which children were talking more after the teachers had gone through this professional development. So when you take all this research together, it shows that this professional development approach that's based on conversation responsivity really works. And educating teachers about this approach makes a difference in how they talk to children and ultimately how children talk in their classrooms. So, long story short, I came to this work through my research in children's language and early literacy development, and that's a line of research that I've been exploring for the past 20 years.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really interesting information to find out through your research. I do have another question for you that I want to ask, but before I do that, I want to get some information from our audience and our attendees. And this time, this one is going to be put your answer in the chat. It's something called a waterfall if you haven't heard this before. But the question I want everyone to think about is, what word or term do you use when you describe or think about children or people who speak languages other than English at home? So just put your answer in the chat. I see answers coming in. ELL, multilingual learners, dual language learners, ES, dual language learners, dual, DLL, ELL. Yeah, lots of home language learners, bilingual. I think there are a lot of like similar answers here. A lot of us ESL, dual language learners, bilingual. Thank you for putting in your answers in the chat, and you can keep them coming too. But I am going to ask you now. So in your book, you talk about culturally and linguistically diverse learners. And can you talk to us a little bit about this term and the terms that we saw coming in the waterfall, and explain to us a bit about why you include culture and how it's an important distinction?
Yeah, sure. So in the conversation at compass approach, I expanded sort of the description beyond language to include culture. So we use the term culturally and linguistically diverse learners. And I did this because I wanted to emphasize that human communication is not just about language, it's also very much about culture. And culture is a really big concept. Culture is about our beliefs, our values, and our traditions. And there are ways that we communicate that are heavily steeped in our identity as cultural beings. So, for example, there are cultural norms around who should talk and when people should talk and what they should talk about and about how
Mm.
we ask questions. And this all relates to how we share knowledge and how we express our feelings and how we engage in conversations. So I wanted to expand the term so that it was clear that even when people are speaking the same language, there may still be cultural differences in communication that are related to people being misunderstood or unaccepted. And this is particularly true when it comes to people who speak dialects, creoles, or vernaculars like African American English, or also known as Black English, which is my first dialect that I spoke as a child. So, overall, I wanted to bring culture into our thinking about this because it expands our view of the differences that we see and experience in terms of communication. And there's actually some research that shows that Black children who speak a cultural dialect might have even more difficulty in their learning environments than those children who speak another language. And this is because the children who are speaking this different dialect are negatively stereotyped, and their home language is looked down upon as being less educated or incorrect. And of course, that's a wrong-headed way to think because all language is subjective and all language is a reflection of who is in power in society. So there's really no one language that is like better or worse than the other. It's simply a matter of who's in power and the traditions and beliefs that we have about language. And that's exactly why it's important for us to understand that culture is essential to communication because it lets us begin to then question who is in power and what the language is that they use and what and how that language may or may not reflect the culture of others in that society. So that's why I expanded the term.
Thank you for sharing all of that. It's a lot to digest. And so I'm just kind of pausing for a moment to kind of let that soak in. I do understand that how we have those kind of stereotypes in our mind or like the judgments that come up with hearing different dialects and just the thoughts that come and really maybe some unconscious behaviors that we have about how we interact with people or the things that happen because of that. And so it's good to bring that to the surface, to bring it to the forefront of our mind as we think about how am I maybe unconsciously contributing to some of these ideas or not in my interactions with people in the world and when working with children.
And what's even more important is that it's it contributes to how we silence children, right? Even if we're not thinking about that on even on a conscious level, even if it's unconscious, if we are denigrating a child's home language and how they speak and how they're entering, how they express themselves, it will serve the purpose of silencing children. And that's not what we want to do. And so in the Conversation Compass course, you we talk about this. There are some like reflection questions to get you to think about these things, as well.
Yeah, and that's really important because it goes much deeper than simply just communication and fostering language. It goes to identity and self and some of the social emotional stuff, all connected and all very important. So I'm gonna move on a little bit, but also kind of back to something that you said, because I wanted to revisit the research that you talked about with conversation responsivity. And I think a lot of us in the early childhood education field equate that concept with serve and return.
Mhm.
But many of us may not have thought about a concept that you bring up in the book of instructional peer conversations. So I'd like to hear from I'd like for you to help us to really understand a little bit more about what instructional peer conversations really are and how we can expect young children who themselves are language learners to be instructors for other children.
Yeah. So this is like a really fun question. It's actually my favorite question because it's so layered. And this is where we're going to get into some really fun examples because I have a couple of videos to share with you. So let me start off by saying that serve and return is still very, very important. In fact, within the conversation compass approach, we have what can be thought of as an expanded version of serve and return, that we call the feedback loop. So in this expanded version, if you can transition to the next slide. Yep, here we go. Okay, so this version of serve and return that we use in the conversation compass, it's expanded to include a circular process. And that process relates to active listening, then moving to elaborating, what I call mirroring on what you have heard and what a child may have said. And you can do this mirroring by repeating or clarifying what a child has said, and then offering up another question, which puts kids right back in the driver's seat and keeps that conversation going. So this has all the foundations of serve and return, but it's broken down more to make sure that we get that open-ended question and elaboration in the communication cycle, because those are the things that really drive critical thinking and language expression. So, another idea that was mentioned here was this idea of instructional peer conversations. And I define these things as child-led conversations where children work and play together to solve problems, to complete an activity, or to talk to each other about their ideas and their opinions and experiences. And I learned a lot about instructional conversations when I was doing some reading about conversations in elementary school. But I quickly realized that preschoolers can have these types of conversations too, because children are really excellent at teaching each other new things. In fact, children can often learn better from one another versus an adult because that child is more similar to them and their skill level. And since there's no sort of power difference, children might feel freer to stand up for their own opinions, and engage in these sort of difficult conversations. And so if we go to the next slide, we have a very fun video that shows you this.
Let me go ahead and play this. Or do you want to say something about it before?
Okay, so what you'll go ahead and play it. I have my notes for after.
Okay.
Sei tu piccolo! Tu sei piccolo! E non piccolo! Non è così! Non è così! No, tu sei piccolo! No,
passa il pallone, dai, passa il pallone!
Tu sei grande!
Gabri!
Io sono grande e tu sei piccolo! No, tu sei piccolo e me sei grande! Dai, uomo!
Passa il pallone!
Io sono grande!
Passa il pallone! Passa il pallone!
So you can see from this conversation.
All right.
So you can see from this conversation, these are two Italian boys having a very heated conversation in which they are passionately and confidently expressing their differing opinions. And it's really a good natured difference of opinion. What they're arguing about is who's taller, right? Who's bigger, who's big and who's small. So that's what this conversation is about. And you can see, and even though we didn't see the actual, even though we might not be able to know all the nuances of the language because we might not speak Italian, we can feel their passion. We can see their back and forth. We can see the gestures that they're using to accentuate their points. And we can see how they are both, like I said, feeling confident enough to come to this conversation in a way that is saying, I can stand up for my opinion here when I'm talking to my peers. And this is such good practice for them, as they grow and learn to become adults. And it's good practice for them as their children in learning how to stand up for their opinions with even us as adults.
Right. Yeah, this is a great example, I think, of seeing, yes, that independence and that growth and that confidence to be able to assert yourself. And also it also takes me back to the cultural piece of it.
Mhm.
I would imagine there's very much an Italian culture that goes along with the big gestures and being very passionate about things. And I'm sure you could go to other cultures where that doesn't exist, right?
Mhm.
And it's just all about that the way that we communicate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for adding that. Yep.
yeah.
Let's go
You
to the
ready
next
for me to
one.
show the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Play it.
Let me see my little notes here. So let me tell you this first before we do this one, okay? So, when fleshing out the idea around instructional peer conversations, I began to read about how preschoolers are actually learning a lot from each other in their early childhood classrooms. So, research shows that children actually spend more time in their classroom talking to each other than the teacher. And there's some great literature about children's different abilities showing that children with lower language abilities actually grow more in language skill when they are in classrooms with peers with higher language abilities. And this is regardless of the teacher's practices and skills and backgrounds, because in the research they're controlling for the differences among teachers, and they're just looking at these differences among peers in the classrooms. So it's so important because these conversations with peers provide a large portion of the language input that children receive in the classrooms. And sometimes you're going to see with this video, just like we saw with the Italian boys, the conversations are complicated and emotional. But it's so important for us as adults to allow children to engage in this tension with their peers because they learn confidence and leadership and problem solving and how to stand up for themselves. So, those of you who are in the classrooms every day, you see firsthand how intense children's relationships can be with their peers and how they learn so many important conversation skills from their friends, like how to talk about their emotions and how to handle conflict. So, what I want you to do is we're going to check out this video here with these three children as they're navigating through a conflict. I'm going to caution you to watch with an open heart because there are many times in this video where you might feel the urge as an adult to want to sort of step in. But let's watch and let's see what happens when we let it play out. And let's notice the roles that you see children taking on in this conversation. Roles such as the aggressor, roles such as the mediator and the comforter. And I want you to notice the level of inhibitory control or restraint that we see in the little boy in this conversation. So let's go ahead and show this video.
Ow! My mommy said it's say sorry to the wiggling. My mom told me it's wiggling. My mom is not. It's not. My mommy, it's wiggling outside, Macy. My mommy said raining. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, you're pretty. And you're not real. I'm real. Watch. We're going to go out there and see. I'm not going to see anymore. Watch is not going to see. Watch. We're going to go out there and watch. It was just raining. Because it's raining. No, it's not. It just rained. It just raining. Ow. It just raining. It's okay. It's raining. You broke my heart. It's okay. You broke my heart. Turn around and then I'm gonna get honey. And me and her can do that. Okay. Deal. She broke my heart.
Can you see it?
All right. Stop this video. Yeah. So you can see here again, children having another very intense debate here. And this is a conversation that is actually involving multiple children. And you can see how the children are taking on different roles. And what they're learning in that conversation is about emotion. They're learning the little boy the girls are actually trying to teach the little boy a new vocabulary word because it's raining outside and he's saying it's wiggling, right? And he's very, adamant that, he has the right word to describe what the weather is going outside. And then you also see this, like I said, you see the conflict gets to a point of aggression in the sense that one little girl, she's poking him, and at the end he's saying like, oh, you poked my heart, right? Like basically he's expressing that you hurt me, right? And in some ways. So this is a very, very rich interaction. It's a daily interaction. We could see this in any classroom. And what I love about this example is that it shows you the snippet of like what's happening from a child's view of the world before an adult might be coming in to intervene. Because I would hope that there isn't going to be an adult that's going to come in and sort of do some mediation and, help resolve this. But it's so beautiful to see how, even in these early stages, as the children themselves, they were doing their own version of problem solving because there was some comforting going on. There was some kind of control there in the sense that one twin is saying to the other, stop it, don't do that, etc. Right? So it's really beautiful to see the level of skill and complexity that children have in their conversation skills. Did she slap him? She didn't slap him, Tina. No, she poked him in the chest. That was towards the end. I don't think she ever slapped him. But yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I said it's it's challenging, to watch, but it's such a good example for us to be able to think about and be able to see from that window of what happens in a conversation, what happens in a conflict in the classroom, even before us as adults have a chance to step in.
Yeah, it's fascinating too, to me, for the children to be able to experience that, and also for the adults in the space to have the restraint, right, to let them have that conversation and have that experience, and knowing like how far to let that go and how long to like hold back and let children figure out and have those conversations amongst themselves before intervening. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of like a an interesting place for us to learn and think too about what they're learning from each other and how we can support it, and also like navigate that as well. But
Yeah.
they are
Well, I
learning
don't
so much from each other.
Yeah, well, I don't, we only get the snippet. Like, I'm seeing the
Right.
clip the same way you guys. So, my imagination is that the adult in the classroom doesn't know yet. The adult in
Mhm.
the classroom doesn't know that this is going on yet, right? And so I think that at the very end, one of the twins is saying, I'm gonna get Heiny or something like that, she's saying. And
Hmm.
I'm imagining that she's saying she's gonna get the adult, right? At
Hmm.
that point. So I don't think that an I would not imagine, I would not advise as a professional that there's an adult actually standing back and watching this. I just think that the adult doesn't know yet. And that's why I
Hmm.
said it gives us a window into what is happening, when we're not around as educators.
Oh, yeah. We can't pay attention to every conversation in
Mhm.
the classroom as it's going on. So yeah, good things to know and keep in mind. Should I go on to the next?
Yes, yes.
Oh, let's see.
Look down. There it is. Can you see it?
No,
It's on your t-shirt. There's a beetle on your t-shirt.
There we
Wait.
go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
Here we
let me
go.
get to the
Do
next
you
one.
want do you want to
Yeah.
say something about this one too before I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So as I had mentioned in the prior slide, during the school day, children actually spend more time talking to their peers than having one-on-one conversations directly with the teacher. And because of this, children form some very deep emotional relationships with each other, where they learn to communicate with each other in a very personal and emotional way. And in this next video, I want to show you how a group of peers greets their friend in the morning with such love and joy. And what this shows is how critically important young children are to each other in terms of making others feel accepted and welcome, and for setting the emotional context for their peers. And it's this emotional context in the classroom that makes it so that children can feel comfortable and feel confident talking in the classroom. So let's go ahead and show this video.
I love it.
Okay.
That's a great video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that all of these videos have in common, you'll notice, is that they're all very emotionally laden, right? And that's the nature of our conversation, our communication as well. So we use conversations to learn new content, etc. But we also use conversations as a way to express, our emotions.
Yes. And a lot of ways it's connection too, right? Like they're connecting with each other in this additional way. I'm gonna see if I can actually close that. I can move us into the next. So those were amazing videos and clips, and thank you for sharing and explaining so much of that conversation and communication. And as we share, or as you've shared that information, it seems so obvious, but when I was in school preparing to become a teacher and my many years teaching, I never really thought about how the children's conversation amongst each other was such a learning opportunity and how to set that up. So I can only imagine how much better I would have been as a teacher myself back when I was in the classroom. And so I want to invite again some audience participation to join the conversation and share in the chat again, instances where you have seen or can imagine children as language models for each other in an early learning environment. So give people a little bit of time to think about it, reflect, recall, and share those messages. And I'll try to read a few of them as they come in. Prasha says that children reinforcing the rules in the classroom with other children. Yes. In my class, one child had some speech difficulties, and when he joined her class or the class with other children, his speaking, I think, got shorter. As you're all typing in more now, the chat's moving around. I'm having a little trouble focusing my eyes. Let's see if I can get a couple more here. I've seen children in the housekeeping area telling a child how to cook, do something with a baby. Were you going to comment?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I saw someone talking about the dramatic play area and the housekeeping area. Those are such great places for children to be able to express themselves and have these like deep back and forth conversations, and to be able to really talk a lot about the social emotional aspects of conversations too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, buddy reading, another great thing, buddy reading. In the conversation compass approach, there's certain activities that we suggest that can promote children interacting with each other and having conversations. And one of the things that we suggest is called like a book club. So there might be, 2 or 3 children who have all read the same book and they come together to talk about, the book. And I've seen that work really well and be very fun.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's probably a great segue. Again, I'll invite people to keep sharing and invite each other, all of you, to read the comments that are coming in about the different ways and places that people have seen, experienced children uh, being language models for each other. Um, but I will segue into the Conversation Compass toolkit, since you mentioned that there are some ideas and activities that are provided. And I want you to invite you to talk to us a little bit about some of the other things that are included in the toolkit that you created in Conversation Compass, and how it will help us foster language development for all children.
Okay. So if you remember when I talked about the research and how the research has shown that this type of professional development works, well, we know that from the research also that it could be better if we figured out how to make it easier for educators to incorporate these types of conversation responsivity activities into their daily routines. And that's exactly what I tried to do with the Conversation Compass. So in the course, I not only introduce concepts, but also present tools that can help educators incorporate what they've learned into their classrooms. So people who take the course will learn how to use these tools and have resources that they can share with parents and colleagues about this approach. So if you go to the next slide. Okay. So within the course and the book, there's a book as well, that is, there are reproducible materials that can help teachers figure out how to set learning activities that give children the opportunity to play together or to have conversation. And some of the examples of tools in this toolkit include things like the idea of a question trail. And that is basically a visual, and it introduces the concept of how questions can build upon each other, and how the understanding that some types of open-ended questions spark deeper thinking than others. And there's also tools that can help teachers track children's growth and development in conversation skills. And this can be so helpful because it provides a framework for educators to learn how to develop those skills to observe children very closely and to document and their growth and their change in oral language. Um, and this is a contribution to the field because there are really hardly any assessments or observation procedures that allow us to document children's oral language skills within the context of conversations. So most often as a field, when we look at oral language, we're really looking at vocabulary, just vocabulary. Let me get a sip of water, guys. But there's more than vocabulary when it comes to expressing yourself in the world. And conversation skills are an area of oral language that bring together all these aspects of language. It brings together vocabulary, grammar, social communication, and it happens in real time and on the spot. So children are also learning the skill of how to think quickly and how to be dynamic, and the skill of having to take into consideration another person's perspective, and not to mention the active listening skills that they're developing in conversations. So conversations are one of the most complex skills in the classroom that children can learn. And it is even so it's very it what I'm trying to say. So it's really important that we are intentional about how we create opportunities for conversations in the classroom, and that we are intentional about how we observe and listen to children in conversation with each other so we can document their growth.
Mm. I'm just thinking about it in the sense of like equating it to breathing in some ways. We kind of take for granted that, conversations are happening all the time, and we don't necessarily think and plan as intentionally about that. Just like we breathe and we don't think intentionally. I know there are books about breathing and how to breathe, but it reminds me of this concept of how, this is how we get through the world and how we get through our days talking and communicating with people. But we use language kind of to navigate through our day a lot of times, and not as thinking about it as in, I'm really here to support children develop good, solid communication skills. And how do I promote that in thoughtful, considerate, carefully planned, set up ways? So I love it. I mean, again, thinking back, 25 years ago when I was in the classroom, I really needed something like this and wasn't as thoughtful about it. So I'm glad it's here now.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things that I learned as I was going through, writing this book and doing, a lot of my research and having my own children, and when I used to teach, I created this after I taught, in the classroom. But one of the things that I learned is that, these really, like I talked about the question trail, and at the top of the question trail, the most sophisticated questions are these open-ended questions that are asking children to be generative thinkers. Like it's asking them to make predictions or hypotheses, etc. And research shows that those types of questions, right, are the least frequently asked questions in a learning environment. And they're sort of the most important ones. And so I think that the contribution that the Conversation Compass makes is that it's really helping teachers um, be intentional and like make plans for conversation. It introduces the idea of like, planning a conversation, like what are the questions that you're going to ask? And if you are engaging in that process, what will happen is that you will plan for having at least one or two of those open-ended, high level questions in the classroom. So you'll be exposing children to those types of questions more. And that's exactly what we've seen in some of our research studies.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, because in my experience, again, as a teacher or as an observer of classroom programs, a lot of times the questions that I would hear are more of those closed questions or like a definite answer. And they were kind of quizzing questions. What color is this? Can you name this? And just peppering children almost sometimes feels like rapid fire. Like, how many questions can I ask you? Because people want to have a conversation and let me ask you something and you respond to me, but they aren't always those thoughtful conversations that really require children not to have a specific set answer and to think outside the box. I feel like the time that children do that the most is when they're gathered around a story time and then somebody wants to say something about something that triggered, from the book that triggered this, or just it's just a chance for them to talk and tell the story about their grandma or the trip that they took. But children are eager to have those conversations and to be able to engage in that way. So um, giving us tools to help think thoughtfully about that and plan that is great. So let's see. I think maybe we're gonna open it up now for the Q&A. We've got a few minutes left here. I haven't been keeping a good eye on the Q&A, and I actually am having a little bit of trouble finding it. So let's see. Here, I got one.
I can see them. Yeah, I
can
can see them. So one question is this available? Is the text available for purchase? So from someone who's anonymous. So the text was published by Red Leaf Press, and it is out of print, like it's not, new editions aren't being printed. You might be able to find a used version or something out there, but I am working very diligently to get to republish the second edition. And so you should have that uh soon. Yes. Yeah, soon.
Hopefully soon, but in the meantime,
Yeah.
If we want to get access to a lot of the tools and some additional information, a little bit more in depth than we've had in the conversation today, I would say that we could encourage people to go ahead and take the course.
Yeah.
That will also give them a lot of the information that they would be seeking really
Yes, yes, for
practical
sure.
ideas and information from the book as well.
Yes, for sure. So if you take the course, all of those like sort of tools and strategies that were just on the previous slide, all of those things will be there, and you will go through the learning, of that. There'll be different videos, there'll be quizzes, etc. So you will be able to get a solid understanding of the strategy by going through the course, the online course. And there will be, like we said, there's materials that are like PDFs that you can download, I think, and print off.
Yeah, the downloadable, resources.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah,
The
and so I see,
recording.
so Ziamara, I see you, what you're saying, can you have a copy of the PowerPoint and the notes? So I don't think we're going to give a copy of, I think we're going to have a recording, right? But we won't be distributing a copy of the PowerPoint, or the notes. But like we were saying, this information and more is available in the course.
Yeah.
And the name of the book it's called The Conversation Compass, and I am the author of it.
Good question. I'm not sure if there are any other questions that have like accidentally been posted in the chat. Let's see. I don't think so. This has been really, really wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Curenton, for joining us today and sharing your all of your wisdom and knowledge in this particular area, because I know you have so much more to offer us. Do you also want to share a little bit about an upcoming book?
Sure.
Yes.
Let me see. So I was here today talking about sort of the preschool version of this conversation compass. There is an infant toddler view and look into this as well. And I started working on that. Well, I actually started working on it at the same time that I was working on the preschool version. I had to separate the two because conversations with infants and toddlers are a little bit different than conversations with preschoolers, because many infants and toddlers are in the pre-verbal kind of language stage. So I've been working with some of my colleagues to modify and develop, and we had people review, as well, some ideas that we have for a infant toddler version of this conversation compass. And so we're working on pulling that together, as well, and getting that out to folks.
That's exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
conversations between infants and toddlers are very different than preschoolers.
So
Yeah.
that's a good point. I see Tania too. This is just one other question. I hope I'm saying that right. About the book being available in English, and yes, right now the prior versions, when it was from Red Leaf, it was only available in English, and it has never been published in other languages.
I guess one way, if people are interested in having it published in other languages, once it does get published in English, keep contacting the publisher and let them know that you've
Yeah.
done it translated. It's hard sometimes for authors or people to make that request. They need to know that there's a demand for it in the market.
Yes, for sure. It doesn't, with the publisher, it doesn't matter at all, like what I say, what I want. It it matters, to them how many books they sell. And so we definitely didn't get to the point of selling enough books such that they were printed in another language. Yeah.
That's just my tip to all of you as consumers out there. If there's something that you need, let the people know. Just like at the grocery store, if there's a food item that you want, go tell them at the front desk.
Yeah.
So just a few other announcements and things to share before we get to our winner here is that we also wanted to let you know that we are going to be having a course released later this year about that Assessing Classroom Sociocultural Equity Scale, the AXIS. It'll be a course for practitioners. And Dr. Curenton, if you could just tell us a little bit about AXIS in case people here also don't know about this.
Yes. So this is another really exciting course that I'm so grateful to be partnering with Branna to make available to you all. Both the Conversation Compass and the Access Practitioner course because of my partnership with Branna, will be available for CEU credits. And so educators can take these courses and actually advance their education and their careers. And so for the Access course, I will tell you a little bit about that. So I along with my other colleagues, Shana Rochester, Ioma Aruka, and Tanya Durden, wrote a book a couple years ago that was based on a measurement tool called the Assessing Social Cultural Equity Scale. And that scale is really a classroom quality measure that centers culture and racial equity. And so it's a measurement tool that can be used by programs or states or localities to assess the classroom quality in your classroom. So it can be used alongside or in substitution with tools like the class or the ERS. And so and at Early Learning Access, which is the organization that I run, we train people how to use that tool. And but what we've learned from the training, when we're training people to be these observers, these reliable, and valid observers of the classrooms, we learned that some folks are like, hey, I don't want to use this to be a data collector and a data monitor. What I want to learn and know is how I can learn about these principles and apply them in my classroom. And that's what the practitioner course does. So in that course, you will learn about the importance of using data as a catalyst for creating and changing learning environments. You will learn about the transformative effects of leadership that's focused on liberation and justice in education. You will learn how the Access framework accounts for the unique experiences of marginalized learners. So those children of color, those linguistically diverse children, children who are living in poverty. And you will also learn research-based strategies to create more equitable learning environments. So that course will be ready at the end of the summer, I think in August. And the book for Access actually is available now, and we might be able to put that in the chat. I have a thank you, Tiffany, from ELA, who has already put the ELA website where you can get information about some of our trainings and the book here in the chat.
Oh, great. Yes, wonderful. Thank you for including that. And thank you for that description of Access. And so now with just a minute left, we will announce our winner of a free course. So some lucky person here will get a chance to actually take the Conversation Compass course. And I think Mary might be able to announce who the winner is.
I can, and I actually put it in the chat as well. Kayla Higgs is the lucky winner, and we will reach out to Kayla after the session and get her the code that she needs so she's able to take that course.
Congratulations,
Wonderful.
Kayla. Thank you. I can't wait. We can't wait to hear from you and learn about your experience with the course. This will be the first time the course is offered with Branna. So happy to have your feedback and everything, and congratulations to you.
Yes. Oops, wrong way. And I wanted to share with you just a quick QR code if you want to take out your phone and snap that so you can get a link to Early Learning Access. You can stay up to date with all of their offerings. And I'm going to leave it here for a second. And just following that, I will put up a QR code to access the courses through the Branna Group training website and let you know all a special little discount here. And it will be in the recording. You'll receive that. So I'll go ahead and do this because we're right at 12 o'clock. You can use this code to navigate your way to purchasing the Conversation Compass course if you'd like, and pay attention to your email because in the follow-up, you'll get a special discount code for attending, and it's just going to be for people who actually attended. So thank you all for being here. Yes.
Thank you all for being here and coming. This was a great way to spend my lunchtime. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yes. I enjoyed, and thank you, Dr. Curenton, for chatting with me today. And I'm sorry, I totally realized like partway through that I never introduced myself. I'm Tara Kajalowski, work with the Brandon Group, and so I just wanted to say hi and thank you all again for being here today. Wonderful.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.